The NBA postseason is underway, baby. On Tuesday night, we're talking play-in tournament here. We had the resilient Hawks outlasting the disappointing Heat, clinching the 7th seed in the East. And the nightcap, we had the Lakers scoring an ugly, dramatic overtime victory over the Timberwolves to claim the 7th seed in the West. We're going to get Gojo's opinion of the play-in tournament coming up. Best bets on the diamond. Which NHL games to wager on, who to roster at the RBC Heritage. Draft needs for each team in the AFC South. We know the Jags, America's team, they don't need much. Welcome to The Sweat, everybody, presented by DraftKings. I'm Member Salatia. Julian Edlow is here. DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya on the horn as well, because we will start in the association before we cover tonight's play-in game action, Jules. What was your biggest takeaway from really a not-so-great night of basketball last night?
Yeah, I think a lot of the chatter is going to be about the Lakers-Wolves game and how that finished and what the Lakers are going to look like against the Grizzlies, and we can talk about all that. My biggest takeaway was Miami, because I was pretty convinced they were going to win that game, and they just could not get it together offensively whatsoever. They could not rebound. That's a team that I think a lot of us felt like could be a team that went to Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Celtics, could be a team that at least gave the Celtics or the Bucks some issues. And after seeing what the Hawks were able to do to them in Miami, where they had lost 7 in a row last night, it kind of seems like even if Miami can win this next game, I would feel better. Not that I thought the Bucks would lose that series anyway, but I would feel better about the Bucks kind of just cruising through that one than I would have at this time yesterday.
Chinmay, most disappointing losing team from Tuesday night?
Looking disappointed, definitely the Miami Heat. They were definitely the more underwhelming team. But as far as who would be more disappointed with the result, it's got to be the Timberwolves. They shot around 50% from three-point range. Despite Rudy Gobert being out, they were in that game for basically the entire time. Couldn't buy a bucket for the last 5 minutes and change, and went to overtime and then ended up losing. And I think after that kind of effort, if you lose, that's going to be a big gut punch for the Timberwolves going into this next play-in game on Friday. General takeaways are there's a reason these teams are in the play-in games. You're going to see good stretches from these teams, and then you're going to see inconsistency. You're going to see times when they just completely fold, and that's why they're in this situation. That's why they're in the 7 and 8 spots in their respective conferences, and you're going to see that again tonight with the 9-10 games. These teams are going to look really good for certain stretches, and then they're just going to be highly inconsistent and pretty sloppy. And that's kind of the nature of these teams that are at the bottom of the conference that are in the play-in situation. They're not consistent enough to be up there with those teams that we would consider title contenders.
Yeah, if the game hadn't been so important, Jules, it would have looked like a mid-season slog there. Teams combined for 45 turnovers and 41 fouls, talking about the Lakers and the Timberwolves. Mm-hmm. Of the two winners, though, Hawks and Lakers, which team is the biggest threat in the first round?
Well, I mean, the Celtics are minus 1,000 series favorites against the Hawks.
So the DK Sportsbook is not very confident in the Hawks.
It's not going to be the Hawks. It's a great matchup for the Celtics. If you want to bet that series, go ahead and lay 2.5 games with the Celtics, because they're going to get that done in 5 or less. It's obviously the Lakers, who are in a near pick'em series now against Memphis. I thought the Lakers could even open favorites in this series. They're going to be a popular public bet against Memphis. I like the Lakers. They're currently plus 105 on DK Sportsbook. Yep. I don't think they're just a threat. I think they're going to win the series. And I wasn't a believer in them at the All-Star break. I thought they needed to show it to me, prove it to me that they could get it together, because they hadn't since the bubble, which was kind of a fluke. And they did. They've now won 10 of 12 games. They won last night playing poorly and with the Wolves knocking down nearly half their threes and hitting a high volume amount of threes. And they escaped. So going to Memphis has had a ton of ups and downs this season. They're now without Steven Adams. They're without Brandon Clark. They don't have the size now, 2 key pieces up front to match up with the Lakers, who do have size. I think the Lakers are going to win this series. It's going to be a very common public perception here. But I think that this is a good, not just a good spot for the Lakers landing in the 7 seed while they're hot, but a good matchup for them as well. So I like the Lakers outright in the series.
Yeah, Chinmay, that bend to the breaking point playing style we saw from the Lakers last night, that could end their season in a hurry, or really it could have them playing into June. What do you expect?
I do think the Lakers are the bigger threat for sure. And I think the big benefit for them winning last night's game was getting some additional rest. We know that LeBron James, the foot is still bothering him a little bit. Anthony Davis has been listed as probable with the foot injury for a long time now. D'Angelo Russell also dealing with a foot issue. He played horribly last night, but they still managed to get the job done. So I think rest is very important for the Lakers here. They get a few days off, get to recalibrate, and get to rethink going into this series against Memphis. I don't think the Grizzlies are as big of a pushover, though. Morant is back. Jaren Jackson is playing at an extremely high level. Desmond Bane is a high-level starter as well. And the Grizzlies feel like, this is their time and this is their moment. And everyone's talking about the Lakers coming in hot. No one's kind of giving the Grizzlies a shot here. I think the Grizzlies could actually win this series quite quickly, just given the Lakers' inconsistencies and poor defensive effort at times during even last night's game and especially during the season. But overall, the Lakers are definitely a bigger threat than the Hawks. There's just too much noise around the Hawks with Quinn Snyder, Trae Young, offseason trade rumors. I don't think they match up well against the Celtics at all, like Julian mentioned. The Lakers are definitely the bigger threat of the two playoff teams, or the two teams that won last night's playing games.
Looking ahead to tonight here, Jules, we got the Bulls-Raptors facing off in the Eastern Conference 9-10 game. Raptors favored now at home by 6 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. Who do you like here? Toronto's been a very good home team this season.
This one would be the underdog or pass for me. Toronto's been really good against the spread at home. They've won 11 of their last 12 at home, but the Bulls have been pretty good on the road recently. They have a 15-12-1 against the spread record as road dogs this season, but they have won 8 of their last 10 on the road outright. So I think this is one of the harder games to project in the play-in round, but strong lean to just taking the 6 with the Bulls. I think it should be a close game. You got DeMar DeRozan going up to Toronto for a little bit of a revenge game. But honestly, the total here has come down because these play-in games, the one-game playoffs, are known to be a little bit of a grinder. It's down to 212, I think. I would play over on this game as probably my favorite play. This is one of the lowest totals for both teams of the entire season. Just because it's a one-game play-in, I don't think these teams are going to change the way they play. So I wouldn't be discouraged by all those bricks from the Lakers and the Heat last night. I think this should be a fast-paced game with a lot of scoring. So I would look to the over in this game.
All right, Chinmay, in their head-to-head meetings in the regular season, the home team 3-0, both outright and ATS. So a trend that, do you expect that to continue tonight?
The number is interesting. I think 6 is kind of where you start getting into territory of, a couple baskets here and there late. The Bulls or Raptors get some free throws late to pull away. That's a number that is kind of scary to bet on. I like the Raptors to win the game, though, outright. And I do like the over, as Julian mentioned. So in the play-in tournament history, I know, this is the third time that we've only had it. But the 7 seeds were 5-1, and the one loss was the Heat last night to the Hawks. Similarly, the 10 seeds are 0-4. They've never won this game. So I think you can feel very confident in Toronto winning tonight. The 6 number, though, is kind of tough to bet with Toronto just because of some things that can happen late in the game. I think the over and Toronto money line are probably where I'm going for this one.
All right, Jules, we got the Thunder traveling to New Orleans, take on the Pelicans in the West 9-10 matchup here. These teams faced off, 4 times this season? Thunder managed to go just 1-3 in those games. What is your lean tonight in this one?
Yeah, it's hard not to like the Pelicans. Good story for OKC. Yeah. Happy to be here. They're going to get some, exposure to big moments for this kind of young core that they're still trying to build with high draft picks around. So it's an interesting spot for OKC, but they're here now. They're this is a team that a lot of us thought could be tanking at certain points in the season. This is a game they're obviously going to try and win. They're in the play, and you might as well keep rolling now. That said, New Orleans is such a weird season. Like, I bet their win total over. I lost that bet. They were sitting around New Year's as the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Then they went on a gross stretch of games after Zion got hurt, and then they kind of rediscovered themselves at the end of the regular season and started playing good basketball again. So now that I've seen that from the Pelicans, who have been a fantastic home team all season, this would be Pelicans or pass for me when it comes to the points. Like the way that I'm playing it, I happen to have a very small bet on OKC to win the West at like plus I don't know. It's a huge plus number. I don't even remember the number.
Good.
So I'm just going to play some Pelicans money line against it and say that, I'll keep rolling against OKC for as long as they're alive with that in my back pocket. But if you're looking to just play the game, I would probably lay it with the Pelicans in this spot, given where OKC's at.
All right, Chinmay, if you expect this to be a competitive game, which many people do, would you want to grab the points right now with the Thunder?
Thunder with the points is definitely interesting because of some of the deficiencies that the Pelicans have. And Zion Williamson not being there is a big blow for New Orleans. I think the big storyline in this game is you're going to see two of the most underrated stars probably in the NBA right now with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Oklahoma City and Brandon Ingram for the Pelicans. Both guys have been playing lights out here at the end of the season. I expect them to put on a show here as well. I would probably take the Thunder with the points just given how pesky Oklahoma City has been. But like I mentioned, the 10 seed has never really won this game in the play-in format. So I would still take the Pelicans money line. The total, I'd probably go over. It's sitting right around where you'd expect it to be, but I would take the over just given the offensive firepower that will be on display. The Thunder are just playing with house money, and the Pelicans actually have expectations to get into the postseason. So does that pressure factor into giving OKC a little bit more juice here on the spread? I think the Thunder with the points is interesting at 5.5, but I think New Orleans does eventually win this game.
All right, good stuff, Chinmay. Jules, it was good having you here in studio.
Yeah.
I'll see you after the show. I'll meet you
I'm
about
gonna
the
take off
snack
now.
rack. Farewell. Coming up, Gojo guys are here for their weekly Wednesday visit to the Sweat. We're going to get their take, obviously, on the NBA play-in tournament, but also ask them how Odell Beckham Jr. changes the dynamic in the ongoing Baltimore Ravens Lamar Jackson soap opera that is coming up next.
Yo, DraftKings, y'all got the most ways to bet on NBA players. I'm hyped. Hitting props, that's my dog. Stack up buckets, blocks, and boards on my boy? Or superstar going one-on-one against another superstar? Oh, it's on. And all these bets are on my man's dedicated page? Now you spoiling me, DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and bet $5 to win $150 in bonus bets on your team to win. Action so good, why bet anywhere else? That's my move. He used my move.
Betting without a game plan is a little like skating a giant ramp without helmet and pads. I wouldn't risk it. And I wouldn't bet without a game plan. DraftKings Sportsbook provides you with tools to set a realistic budget and time limits, so you're ready to bet responsibly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook and casino apps to learn more about how you can practice safe bets.
This season, DraftKings Sportsbook is your place to bet on the greatest sport on ice. There's so many ways to get closer to the game. And with this latest offer, you can win big. Now that is deserving of some victory stick taps.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with the promo code, and take advantage of this great offer.
And get in on the action with an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
With DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports, you can play for millions with a lineup full of big NBA stars. Maybe you throw in a three-point specialist that's been around the league, seen a thing or two. If you want. Download DraftKings and play for your share of millions. Action's so good, why play NBA anywhere else?
A Wednesday tradition unlike any other here on a Wednesday edition of The Sweats. It's the Gojo Gang, and you can listen to their podcast every weekday morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Brandon Newman, Mike Golick Jr. talking all the fun stuff, sports and stuff, pop culture. Grab it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, like the Gojo podcast. That's my favorite podcast. What's yours? Hey, guys, great to see you. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. You're my favorite podcast, Emerson.
Whoa. All right, buddy. Slow it down, silly goose. Okay, you're feeling pretty good, Brandon, after what the Lakers did last night. You were likely on the edge of your seat, weren't you?
I was. I'm also a big fan of you on Twitter, Emerson. I wanted to give you a shout out. I don't know, some of your tweets maybe go unrecognized and undeserved, but I thank you for what you do. But yes, very happy about my Lakers and LeBron James's double-double. He continues to do otherworldly things as the leader of this Lakers team that was written off by everyone who wanted to follow basketball and everyone who didn't for a very long time. But Anthony Davis came through and added the drama that the night needed and took this team that had no business being in that game in the first place in the Minnesota Timberwolves. And Mike Conley hit some clutch free throws, and we had overtime. It was beautiful.
I'm glad that you said Anthony Davis came through ... and delivered the drama. Like Anthony Davis ended up coming through in overtime after he decided to send them there to begin with and robbed Dennis Schroeder of what should have been an awesome game-winning photo of him and LeBron James hitting the ice water in their veins. So yes, delivered on drama. That was categorically, from the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter on, one of the worst basketball games I've ever seen in my life. Everybody actively trying to lose was incredible.
It was disgusting. I mean, neither game was fantastic, as we talked about in the first segment, hitting on the play-in tournament. Mike, where do you sit on this overall? Good idea, bad idea?
I had generally been pro the play-in tournament until last night. Last night was very difficult to watch overall because, like Brandon said, yes, we ended up with compelling drama at the end, but even for the most untrained basketball eye, we all knew what we were watching wasn't any good. But if you're the NBA, Adam Silver got his wish of the midseason tournament, is continuing to find ways to invent interest around the regular season and to curb tanking. And this has delivered on that because you've had teams like the Lakers, teams like the Warriors in the past that have made their way into this that are going to garner eyeballs no matter how bad it looks. So yeah, I'm pretty pro play-in tournament. I would just like it cleaned up a little bit from what we saw last night.
For sure. And it's the fourth season of it too, Mike. I think we've seen the NBA like tweaking rules like a little bit. I will say what I like about it, Brandon, it does seem to be curbing like the tanking, at least in the short term, even with that ugly Dallas situation. It's not fixing it completely, but it is helping.
Well, we're in a special time for tanking just because we have another generation of talent coming up in this draft. But I can't believe listening to Mike criticizing the first four of the tournament. Like these are bad teams on purpose that are supposed to get good via playing each other. And then it's like losers bracket style of a thing that could end up being a championship run. Now we get a chance to get Shannon Sharp's sweater versus the Memphis Grizzlies and Dylan Brooks perm blowout over and over again. And this is exactly what Adam Silver wanted.
What about the Masters, dudes? Because that's still being talked about here on a Wednesday. We had you guys on our Master special last week. What was your favorite part of what was a wild 4 days of golf, Mike, between the weather and the changes atop the leaderboard and Jon Rahm's fortune cookie?
Yeah, so a few things stand out here. One, I'm glad no one got hurt when the trees fell so that we can laugh about it. I did a great photo edit of Kesh's timber to that, which really sang. Phil Mickelson looked like he's eaten only cigarettes since the last time we saw him. The guy really looks like he's going through it. The divorced dad energy has never been stronger. And I think for Jon Rahm, I am so appreciative that now we have the proper time to once again, because I missed out on this before, to once again celebrate a beef golfer. So much of our energy talking about big boy golf was devoted to Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, largely because they didn't like each other. But Jon Rahm is just this thick mass of humanity that's built to destroy golf balls, and I'm glad he's having his moment in the sun.
All right, Brandon, what'd you like?
I'll tell you what, I love Tiger. I love Tiger going out there.
That was
and
painful.
Getting hurt in front of us.
That hurt.
Listen.
Oh.
That's the only way we allow our greats to leave is on a stretcher, unfortunately. And Tiger was out there walking around like he was walking on a waterbed. It was sad to see, but it was good to see him play his way into his demise. And then outside of that, obviously at the end, the podium speech from Jon Rahm, bringing up NFL great Zach Ertz out of nowhere from the clouds. And then also at the same time throwing shade at J.J. Watt, who was also in that group thread text when they were talking about him killing the first hole. So I love the fact that the NFL made his way into the Masters only when champions had the mic.
Yeah,
And it did give us then the insight into their group chat, which is named Birdies and Babies. And I have to say, Emerson, the group chat that you started with me and Brandon,
Yep.
the Gojo Brotato Chips,
Yep.
infinitely better name.
Yes, I 100% agree. Had to fire it up this morning. I was on a nice walk with my 2 dogs around the public garden, and I said, you two need to see this. And you replied, Mike, but Brandon's a terrible texter. But Brandon, I know you'll have a good opinion on this. This is a story very close to your heart because you're wearing a Lamar Jackson jersey right now, which is pretty obvious. Your Ravens have signed Odell Beckham Jr. What does this mean for the saga between the All-Pro quarterback and the team?
This means that we get this All-Pro quarterback for 1 more year. I think
Really?
this is a 1-year contract. That's why Odell Beckham got paid so much, because he's getting a portion of that, because Lamar Jackson was probably his agent working in this thing. He and Omni and who's the one that just got into the mix? Fiscal. What is?
It's like Ken Francis or something. I think that might be a guy from Jeopardy, but that sounds right.
No, you're right. You're right, Ken Francis. So, anyways, I think this does buy us some time. I think Lamar Jackson wants to play with Odell Beckham Jr., and I think both of them get an opportunity for 1 year, see what they can do and try to raise their valuation for teams, because the knock on Lamar is that he hasn't been there in the last part of the year. So I think the Ravens are going to come to some agreement. Mike says he will never play on a franchise tag. I think there's a version of that that will make him acquiesce as someone who is representing himself and knows that time he has to work with that and have the not for long league. Somebody has to prove. He has to go prove that he can do it for long term, a full season.
No, I'm kind of with Mike. I see this dude holding out. I really do. I don't think he's going to be playing on that tag. Mike, how much are you reading into them partying at the club together?
You know what? I appreciate just how much Lamar is enjoying trolling not only Ravens fans, but I'd imagine the Ravens front office too. Sending out the Instagram post of him and Odell on FaceTime together and then having all of those pictures leak of them at the club. We were one football in the club short of me really nominating this for some sort of Emmy, because Lamar knows everyone is looking at this and seeing it through the lens of him. Like this Odell Beckham Jr. move, based on the wide receiver market, would have been good no matter who the quarterback is in Baltimore, because they've had a definite need there, and they've got a wide receiver class in the draft that's pretty weak, and a wide receiver draft class in free agency that Odell was damn near the top of, despite his age and injury history. But still, because Lamar is the cloud hanging over this, everything traces back to him. He knows that. We know that. And so he let us know it on social media. The guy continues to play chess, not checkers, and I love him for it.
When do you think we'll find out what the hell he's going to do, Mike?
I think the draft is going to be really telling, because, again, the only other team we've heard publicly talk about Lamar Jackson are the Indianapolis Colts. We know Jim Irsay has the requisite amount of wild boy in him to do something like give Lamar close to fully guaranteed money or get him over that $230 million amount. And they've got the 4th pick in the draft, which means they're going to need to, the Indianapolis Colts, have their order in this figured out going into draft weekend, because what you're not going to do is think about getting into the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes and then maybe let it get to the other side of the draft and pass up on any of the quarterbacks, the blue chip prospects at the top of this year's draft. So I think we're going to find out a lot about what the market's going to look like for him before the draft for a team like the Colts, and potentially after the draft if someone who misses on one of those top guys all of a sudden gets on the other side and reconsiders that we're not going to go after Lamar Jackson's stance they may have taken.
Yeah, draft is 2 weeks from tomorrow. We're going to have a draft special here. You're going to be in studio, I believe, with this Golic. We'll be rocking our H&M outfits here. Latest buzz, though, Brandon, has teams asking Arizona for that 3rd overall pick. So right ahead of the Colts. I believe you guys discussed this on your podcast yesterday. So what do you believe the Cardinals should do, Brandon?
I think they should draft a quarterback. I think they should draft a quarterback, I think they need to move all that guaranteed money they have to Kyler Murray, because guess what? As much of a miss as Cliff Kingsbury is, I'm sure he's going to do great at USC, it's a miss for Kyler Murray as well. I think there's a bunch of thirsty teams that they could use that can trade that pick for and start their future over it. The same reason I'm hoping that Mike is right about Lamar Jackson and the Indianapolis Colts. I hope that the Baltimore Ravens end up going up there and getting an Anthony Richardson, another project, and Baltimore can be Project City for the first rookie contract of very talented quarterbacks. I'm all for that, but I really do think that it's boring to trade back, especially when those defensive guys are probably not going to be on the board too far down the road. But I really want to see the Washington Commanders make a huge move up as far as they can. They're sitting at 16. I don't believe that they like Sam Howell as much as they tell us. So I would love to see them get a quarterback as well.
Mike, is Kyler Murray not it out in the desert?
You know what? Listen, the results have not been promising so far, right? We saw, and the parts of the organization he had friction with are now gone. Cliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim, all these people no longer work there. And so this is going to be the ultimate test of Kyler Murray. While his contract is likely in a place where they can't move, is he going to start to show the signs of being a franchise leader that they need him to be with Jonathan Gannon at the helm? And so I'm still going to hold out the verdict on that, but early returns would say, no, Kyler Murray's probably not going to be the long-term answer, but he's the one you paid. And you're at the beginning of a new cycle with a new staff on a team that doesn't have a roster to compete this year based on everything you've lost. Trade back, acquire even more picks, fill out in the offensive and defensive lines of scrimmage, and then start to build this foundation the right way under the new regime.
Go Joe Rose time, gentlemen. Who gets the honor this week, Mike?
I am going to start off by giving this. I want an honorary shout out. Brandon already mentioned Cliff Kingsbury, or else I would have gone there. Going from beaches in Thailand to the shores of Southern California to hang out with his old backup quarterback is an incredible flex. But I want to shout out Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce went and threw a pitch at the Cleveland Guardians game over the weekend and spiked that thing into the turf. And I still, tinfoil hat conspiracy, believe that this is a ploy for content for their podcast.
Okay.
It's something I aspire to. Me and Brandon are going to think about how to fix some sort of throw or some sort of inaugural event we're part of to make sure we're driving the right amount of clicks. It's an incredible move by a great content creator, and I applaud him for putting his reputation on the line in the process.
All right. Wow. Brandon, do you believe that was done on purpose?
Absolutely not. I wanted Travis Kelce to show how disappointing he was in public. I know he went in that dugout and cried, or wherever he went in that tunnel and was so disappointed in himself. And I wanted him to show it to his hometown. We need vulnerability. I think he had one SNL stint and it went well. And now he thinks he can't cry in front of everyone because he dirts a pitch from the mound. I don't want to hear it. He's supposed to be an elite athlete. One of those Super Bowls are suspect.
All right. Who gets your rose, though, Brandon?
I feel like I have to give it to Anthony Edwards. Is that fair?
You lead the league in ironic roses.
Yeah, you really do. Man, remember the time with from Maroon 5, you were dishing it out to him? He was
I can say Adam Levine got a rose for DM infidelity from you.
Yeah.
This is on brand.
That was a great story.
There was a few other ones. Yeah, I mean, I guess, depending on which side of the story you're looking at. You do have the oddest rose handouts every week.
Well, I can't give it to Ant. He had an amazing block and a terrible effort. Only 9 points. I can't wait for him to leave Minnesota like all the greats do and end up somewhere else and starting a new super team. Hey, maybe we can start Dunk City in Memphis. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know after that playing game, he's gone.
Mm-hmm. You obviously have the Lakers advancing past the Grizzlies.
I do. I think it's a hard-fought game, probably another one that goes in overtime, maybe double overtime if Anthony Edwards is still on the floor and doesn't get fouled out. But I really do think that this is a clash of the Titans. I think Memphis has gone through as much woes as they need to. They're lucky that this game is going to be played on their floor because we know how they act when they're on the road. I am confident in LeBron James lifting that team, even though the hero ball he played yesterday was disgusting. He has to do something to get to that double-double streak that he's on. And I think we have enough ancillary characters that's going to step up. We haven't had Austin Reeves have an Austin Reeves game yet, and he's going to have that in the playoffs.
Guys, love y'all, mean it. Thanks for hanging out and doing your thing, as you always do here every Wednesday on the Sweats. I know we just talked ugly first pitches. We will focus on baseball, on guys who can actually throw beautiful pitches throughout an entire game. Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers take on the rival Giants in the Bay. One of the many nice matchups that we have this evening. We'll get you best bets for the slates at all times of the day when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, and Gary and Thorne, the Rays are 11-0 on the season. The best mark in the wild card era, dude. And the mark to reach, by the way, 13, which would tie the 82 Braves and 87 Brewers for longest winning streak to open a year in MLB history. Gary, the most impressive part of this streak, in your opinion, is what? These dudes have 9 more home runs than runs allowed. Give me a word to describe that, please.
I mean, that right there is the stat.
Yeah.
You know, for as much as we can sit here and say they've yet to play an actual good functioning baseball team,
True,
which I think you can make that argument.
Yes.
They are not just beating these teams, they are bludgeoning these teams. So at a certain point, you kind of just have to take a step back and go, they're amazing. You know, I think coming into the season, I had some question marks about the potency of this offense. I mean, Randy Arozarena is amazing. He's one of the best personalities in baseball, but when you actually sit down and look at his statistics from the last 2 seasons, it's not like he's one of the best hitters on the planet. Wander Franco was injured last season. He didn't quite live up to the massive amounts of hype that we had given him heading into 2022. So that was kind of the concern. And obviously you had some, you know, is this rotation going to stay healthy? And, you know, they've currently got 2 of their 5 starting pitchers on the IL, and they've still won their first 11 games. So, yeah, they're going to have to play the Blue Jays. They're going to have to play the Yankees at some point, and we'll see what they look like at that point. But they're really impressive, and it's this offense in particular that has really caught my attention.
I mean, they can only play the teams that are on their schedule, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Plus,
and again, it's not just like they're squeaking these games out. I think they had the one come from behind victory in the 9th inning against the Nationals off Kyle Finnegan. But aside from that, I think they've only trailed after 5 innings this season.
Yeah. And the 83 runs and then scoring 83 runs, allowing 20 for a run differential plus 63. This was an interesting stat, Gary. To put that in context, there hadn't been a team with a run differential plus 50 through 9 games this season, 9 games since 1884. Let's go to, that's a long time ago. Let's go to best bets for today. The show airs at 11 a.m. It's a little after 11:30. We got some day games here on the NBA schedule. What's your favorite bet from the earlier slate?
Yeah, let's start with the first game. This one gets going in a little over an hour. We've got Rich Hill going up against the Astros. Not a formula for success for Rich Hill. He has looked terrible so far this season. I think the goose finally might be cooked when it comes to Rich Hill. He's giving up a 30% opponent barrel rate. It's bad news when a pitcher is giving up 30% hit rate to opposing batters, a 300 batting average, let alone a 30% barrel rate, the optimum launch angle and exit velocity you can have for a batted ball event. It's no surprise he's given up as many home runs as he has. This Astros lineup isn't at like full capacity right now. They're even sitting Yordan Alvarez this afternoon, so maybe he's getting off a little easy, but I still think the Astros, their first 5 run total is set at 2.5. I think they go way over that number, even without Yordan in the lineup today. Rich Hill is just, he's not got the stuff to combat a lineup this good.
And he was very vocal the other day talking about the pitch clock. He is not a fan of it right now. He's a dude who's been around, it feels like, for centuries, so it doesn't shock me that he's not a huge fan of it. What about tonight? We got a couple 6:35 starts mixed in with some later games. Which one has your attention?
So you know what? I'm picking the Red Sox on the money line.
Wow! So first loss of the season for the Rays coming up?
It has to happen at some point. They have to lose a game. And look, Taj Bradley is one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball. But as we saw yesterday, Grayson Rodriguez, who is a higher-ranked pitching prospect than Taj Bradley, got roughed up by the Oakland Athletics. It is hard to make the jump from AAA to the major leagues. And for as talented and as good as Bradley is, I think the Red Sox, you have to give them the edge in the pitching matchup today. Chris Sale has been a little shaky. He's had struggles with the long ball this season. It seems when batters are squaring him up, they're really squaring him up. But at the same time, through 2 starts, he's got a 31% strikeout rate and a 14% swinging strike rate. The signs are there. He's got the stuff still. He's still getting swings and misses, which is really what you want first and foremost from a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. It's hard to pick against a team that has a 165 WRC plus currently, but like I said, you've got a rookie making his first MLB start. I think he's going to struggle enough where that opens the door for the Red Sox at plus money. The Rays can't go 162-0. They got to lose at some point. I think today's the day.
Should the Rays maintain their perfect winning percentage, Gary, and for the rest of the year, they would finish 162-0, which would be the best season in franchise history, which started in 1998. A prop that is worth paying attention to today on the DK Sportsbook, no matter what time of day the game is.
So this is another afternoon one, but Sonny Gray's strikeout prop is way too low this afternoon. It's at 4.5 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. This is someone who had 13 strikeouts in his last start against the against the Astros. And the Astros don't strike out. So that's quite the accomplishment for Sonny Gray. You might even see this number get up to 5.5 by the time first pitch happens. I would be perfectly fine with that. I would still take the over. You look at Chicago, they are a very strikeout-prone team, and their lineup is not at full strength right now. Obviously, they are missing Eloy Jimenez. Yohan Moncada is banged up. He has not been in the lineup the last couple of days. Tim Anderson was placed on the IL yesterday. This is not a good White Sox lineup right now. When they come into this game, leading baseball in chase rate up at 38%, and they have the second highest swinging strike rate as a team at 13%. They love taking wild hacks, and Sonny Gray is going to take advantage of that. He will get at least 5 strikeouts in this game. And again, even if this gets up to 5.5, I am comfortable taking the over.
All right, as we mentioned, Gary, our mixed schedule. We got games in all sorts of different time slots. So we have a smaller DFS slate today because of that. Who do you believe is a must roster in DFS tonight?
So we're stacking Orioles tonight, obviously.
Oh, bro, how
Playing the
about Mountcastle last night?
So
My-
Mountcastle, perfectly fine to use him again if you want to. They're facing
Well.
another left-handed pitcher in Ken Waldichuk. Waldichuk is, had his struggles so far this season, just like every Athletics pitcher has. He's actually allowing opposing right-handed batters to hit .410. He's given up 6 home runs to righties in his first 2 starts of the season. So I think there's going to be more damage tonight from those right-handed bats of the Orioles. But 2 guys I wanted to point out who might go not under the radar necessarily, but there's a little bit of a red flag surrounding both these guys. First is Adley Rutschman, who is obviously fantastic, but if there's one area where Rutschman struggled in his rookie season, and he was actually just straight up bad, he could not hit as a right-handed batter. He's a switch hitter, but regardless of that, he was terrible against left-handed pitching last season, had just a 64 WRC plus. So far this season, he's 7 for 15 with a 556 on base percentage against left-handed pitching. So I think he's figured it out. Perfectly fine to use him at over 5K. The other guy, the other switch hitter even on the Orioles, Anthony Santander, has been in a huge slump to start 2023, but I think tonight is the night he breaks out. He's just $4,100. Last season in 178 plate appearances against Southpaws, he had a 159 WRC plus, easily the best mark on the Orioles. He is their best batter against left-handed pitching, and I think he shows that today.
All right, my dude. Good catching up with you. We will let you go because coming up next, we're going to dive in to the working man's division in the NFL, the AFC South, the draft needs for each of those 4 teams coming up next. Well, 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 how the turntables. Look who is favored to win the AFC South, the best division in football, the football division in the NFL of the working man. The Jags minus 150, the Titans, good luck, plus 350. Colts odds could get shorter if they do end up eventually landing Lamar Jackson and the Houston Texans. Next, DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich. The draft, my dudes, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Let's talk about draft needs for each of these AFC South teams. The Texans, where to begin, Jeff Ulrich?
Where to begin with these Houston Texans? Who do they think they are, hey? You know, with the number 2 overall pick. There's a lot of different things that Houston can do. The most obvious is they need to get a quarterback wide receiver combo in here, and they certainly have the draft picks to do it, to go out and select C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. C.J. Stroud now the favorite to go at number 2, and then take Jackson Smith-Njigba at 12. That is certainly a course of action that they could take, but Houston is a team with needs. And they do have Davis Mills at quarterback. They're actually less QB needy than some of these other AFC South teams, which really, to me, screams for the fact that I think trading down is a legitimate scenario that the Houston Texans should be entertaining and go down and get Zay Flowers in the later rounds, address the O-line, give Davis Mills a chance, and maybe get some draft capital for future seasons. But, the most glaring need for the Houston Texans, they have a pretty solid corner. They got some young cornerbacks. Derek Stingley, a decent pass defense. They need to address the interior, a better rush defense, and they just need to up the skill level at offense, mainly quarterback and wide receiver.
Pierce, how big of a task does new head coach DeMeco Ryans have on his hands?
Got a pretty big one. The Texans have struggled for quite a few years. Now, hopefully the expectations are not that high, being that they are so far away and they have so many holes to fill. And quarterback is obviously the big-time glaring need, and they've got the pick to do it, whether that's going to be Bryce Young or Stroud. It's there. And then with their first-round pick, I disagree with Jeff. I think the wide receiver option is a very sexy way to go, but I think the best way in the working man's division is to take an offensive lineman. We're seeing a lot of the star offensive linemen projected to go around in the teens, and so they should be able to address that need. And then there's also the option that if the Texans really look at it and say, hey, we're not going to compete this year, we've got too many needs, maybe they trade away that top pick, get some more draft capital, decide this isn't the year for them to go high on quarterback and just fill all the needs, take another year with Davis Mills. You take one of the star quarterbacks, they're still not going to win. So I would not rule out the Texans trading down. I kind of like that option for them, honestly.
Especially with Bryce Young now favored to go number 1. It definitely opens up the trade down option for Houston.
Pierce, what about for the Colts? Will they finally bite the bullet and draft their future signal caller?
They should, but we don't know if they will. I mean, if you look back at their past quarterbacks that they've drafted over the last 30 years, they've done pretty well. And they've not done well with signing free agent quarterbacks. That is a big-time hole. Is there going to be a quarterback available for them? Are they going to get the guy that they want where they are drafting? Do they need to trade up to get to the guy that they want? And who specifically do that? Maybe they like Will Levis, and they're going to take him. And I've seen him drop as far as 20th in some mock projections. So it's going to be up to them to decide if they want to go that route. They also need to address the cornerback needs. They're good. I mean, this is a passing league, so you need pass rushers. You need cornerbacks. Their pass rushers are halfway decent. Should they spend one of those high-end picks on Witherspoon or on Gonzalez? Is that spending up a little too much? Maybe they could trade down and try to get one of the top cornerbacks around, the 10th or 12th pick. That's an option. They also have tons of offensive line needs. I think ultimately they're going to take the quarterback that they want and then try to also build their offensive line.
Yeah, that O-line does need some revamping, Jeff.
The Colts are a really interesting team. They do have some holes that need to be filled. O-line certainly is one of them. Their cornerbacks are also not great. Pierce mentioned Christian Gonzalez. He would actually fit in really nicely, but this is also a team where they have a really solid foundation at certain spots. The D-line is still fantastic. DeForest Buckner back there. They have a great group of young wide receivers. More than the Texans, the Colts are the team to me that need to go after a top 2 quarterback. They need, if you inserted C.J. Stroud on the Indianapolis Colts, I really do think there's a chance that this team could really turn a corner really, really quickly, especially with an offensive head coach now in Shane Steichen CJ Stroud would just fit magnificently, in my opinion, with Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods. I mean, we're talking about like potentially the best pocket quarterback passer in this draft. That's the guy I think the Colts should go out and get, if you're asking me. But man, considering Shane Steichen's history with Jalen Hurts, Anthony Richardson, if he's sitting there at 4, you really have to wonder if that's going to be their target. Will Levis is also there, but if Richardson does get selected by the Colts, that is really going to take down the fantasy value for all those receivers I just mentioned. So Colts are a team where, to me, like their draft is really going to determine where they go. If they just address the defense and they don't really address the quarterback position in any meaningful way, they'll get better in the long term, but it's not going to be bullish for next season, in my opinion. But if they somehow end up with Stroud, then you could see this team be a lot better than people think in 2023.
Jeff, there's a new GM at the helm in Tennessee. The Titans need to address several areas. Which one is most notable?
I mean, the Titans to me are just a team sitting out there in no man's land right now. I'm not even sure if it matters what they do. I just don't think that they have the same kind of like upside available as a team like the Colts necessarily. Still have a really good run defense, or top of the league in terms of defensive run DVOA, but they were bottom of the league in terms of pass DVOA. So addressing one of those holes is fine. And then in terms of just their skill level on the offensive side, I mean, what do you do here? You've got maybe 1 or 2 years left with Derrick Henry. Do you try and reload quickly and insert, say, an Anthony Richardson into the offense? I think that is certainly a viable option for Tennessee, and it sounds like they're kind of interested in doing that. But even if you get Richardson in there and you go with the run-heavy scheme, is that going to be enough to get the division title and really make a meaningful run? I just feel like the Titans are a team where they just need to take a year off and rebuild. Cut ties with Ryan Tannehill, get something for him. Give Malik Willis a chance to run the offense, get some picks, rebuild the O-line, get some more talent in there at wide receiver. The Titans probably won't do that. They're probably going to go after Richardson or something like that. But to me, they're just a team sitting out there who don't really have a direction right now. I'd like to see them just rebuild for a season and maybe trade back. But, there's a lot of options on the table for the Titans as well.
Biggest draft need for the Titans, Pierce?
The Titans might not have a direction, but in this division, they're not that far off. And I know on paper they don't look great, but if we look at the Titans year in, year out, they don't always look that good. They're just a well-coached team. They're good just about everywhere. They're not terrible anywhere. They could play it very safe and go conservative with the draft. Again, I know it's boring to talk about offensive line, but if you build up the line, you're going to get better play out of Tannehill, who was injured multiple times last year. You're going to squeeze a little bit more out of Derrick Henry, and maybe the receivers will step up. I don't think they're that far from winning division or sneaking into the playoffs if they do that. They could also maybe get lucky with a second-round wide receiver. And then, I mean, as Jeff mentioned, there is the option of if Anthony Richardson or Will Levis falls to them, maybe they want to take that. Maybe they want to trade up. I think that's the more radical approach. Offensive line, second-round wide receivers, probably where they should go.
All right, guys, now to the favorite in the division, America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jeff, a quieter offseason because of some limited cap space there. What do you think the Jags need to do in the draft?
Quieter offseason because, quite frankly, the Jacksonville Jaguars have a pretty solid team all of a sudden.
Damn right.
It's true. I mean, like, this is a team who obviously, built around a younger quarterback, but they've got some talent in other areas now. Tyson Campbell's an emerging stud at cornerback. Certainly, you could address the cornerback position as well. But, late first-round pick for the Jacksonville Jaguars, I would really like to see the Jacksonville Jaguars go out and get Dalton Kincaid at tight end. If you look at what the Jaguars on offense did, they did struggle in the red zone. Trevor Lawrence struggled passing in the red zone. His completion rate was under 60%. If you look at Dalton Kincaid's tape, this is just a player who can absolutely catch anything in traffic. He would be a magnificent player to put alongside Trevor Lawrence. And also, they have Evan Ingram on a 1-year contract, essentially. They cut ties with him next year. You have a successor in place. I want to see the Jaguars go and get a tight end. I want to see them get Dalton Kincaid specifically, but addressing the O-line would be number 2, and it wouldn't shock me if they did that with their late first-round pick either.
Yeah, D-line could probably use a little bit of help, but this draft is truly stacked at the tight end position, Pierce.
I don't think they need to go in the tight end position. Offensive line, if one of those guys falls to them, you're really going to boost the play of Trevor Lawrence. We saw him make huge gains last season. You're going to help ETN, and the wide receiver core has gotten better. But they don't really need that much help offensively. They showed that last season that they can score. It's just they get themselves into shootouts. And so if I were the Jags, I would work on, building off of what you were working on last season, addressing, your front seven on defense, taking the best available. They don't have this is a weird year where the Jags are really boring to talk about because they don't have great draft capital. They don't have a lot of salary cap. It's a good thing for them, but it's boring for us. So just take the best available late in the first round.
All right, Pierce, toodaloo. Jeff, I have a need for RBC Heritage DFS advice. The best in the world as Len Hochberg joins the party. We'll be blasting piss missiles and tossing darts at Harbortown. First round is tomorrow. So let's start at the top here, dudes. John Rahm, looking at DFS salaries. Slipping on the green jacket last week, atop the salary board at 11-1. Who's your top priced player of the week, Len? Because many of these dudes who suited up at Augusta could be gassed.
Yeah, and that's certainly a concern this week. Although the RBC gets a pretty good field every year. This year, there's about 40 of the top 50 in the world. Last year, 25. The golfers love this golf course. It's a type of golf. I know we're all sort of post-Masters hangover, including John Rahm. But this is a different type of course, and we don't get to see it too often. And it should be some fun golf, even if it takes till the weekend for us to get back into it and stuff. I do expect Rahm to be on a bit of a hangover, figuratively, perhaps literally. Patrick Cantlay had major minutes on Sunday, maybe a few too many minutes more than most people would have liked, but he has been great at this tournament through the years. He was runner-up last year to Jordan Spieth. So I think he has to be my top play in that upper tier. But I think Colin Morikawa is really starting to round into form, and you will not get hurt this week as badly as many weeks by being an average or poor putter because of the very, very small greens.
Looking for a guy who isn't all that long but hits laser irons to smaller greens. Morikawa could be your guy, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I certainly don't hate the idea of Colin Morikawa, but I like the upside of Patrick Cantlay over Colin Morikawa this week as well. Patrick Cantlay, 3 top 5 finishes at the RBC Heritage in his last 5 starts here. He could have won this event twice easily, probably 3 times. He absolutely dominates these Pete Dye designs. We've seen him go low at TPC Stadium for the American Express as well. And yeah, I mean, Cantlay has gotten all the negative press this week because of the slow play. It's an issue, but I mean, he's been absolutely taking the cover off the ball, since the Florida swing has started. He's up there in leaders tee to green over the last 24 rounds. He's just a great wedge player. So these shorter courses, I mean, it just fits right into his wheelhouse. He feels comfortable on them. And Len mentioned the easier putting. I mean, his putter hasn't been great, but it certainly wouldn't shock me if that club popped up a bit. A little bit tougher conditions in play again this year, it looks like, with the weather. I think Patrick Cantlay is the top play, just considering price.
Oh, he was absolutely glacial at Augusta playing. Oh, my God. Anywho, Justin Thomas here, dudes. He missed the cut at Augusta. He's under 9K. He's 8,900. How much attention are you going to pay to JT this week, Jeff?
A lot. Look, Kevin from The Office used to say, whenever someone gives me 10,000 to 1, you take it. Whenever Justin Thomas is under $9,000 in salary in DFS, you just roster Justin Thomas, unless he's like lost a limb or something, which he hasn't, as far as my sources have confirmed. So yeah, Justin Thomas, it was an ugly little second round for him. I get it. He went from 2 under to 4 over. He probably blew up a lot of people's lineups. There's probably some people who never want to look at Justin Thomas again. Who cares? He's gained over 2 strokes on approach in his 3 starts before the Masters. This is a player who, again, was lamenting his fate on Twitter, saying how badly he wants to be playing golf and how much he loves it. He's going to be just fine. He's done well at this event. He was 11th on debut at the RBC Heritage and Harbortown Golf Links as well. He's done well. He's won at TPC Sawgrass, another Pete Dye design course. He's just a legitimately great wedge and short iron player. He's going to be just fine this week. He's going to bounce back. I don't know if he's going to win. His putter has been so up and down, but at 8,900 for DFS, you do not need him to win. He should be in all your lineups.
Len, you buying the dip on Thomas, who has played 8 events in 2023 and has posted finishes better than T20 in just 2 of them?
Yeah, I can't even wait to start talking. I'm started to talk before you finished. I can't even wait to start talking about Justin Thomas. Everything that Jeff said. He's going to be pretty motivated. Unlike Rory McIlroy, who just didn't want to show up this week, and we're still haven't heard why. and that's going to be a story. But I think he really wants to get back out there, and this is a great fit for him. Jeff mentioned the short game is great. Look, the greens are so small. Greens are going to be missed. Greens in regulation numbers are traditionally very low at Harbor Town. That brings scrambling into play. That's where Justin Thomas can really separate himself from other golfers. And again, like Morikawa, the smaller greens will mask his poor putting. So he is just a green light special in just about every way to go, and especially under 9,000.
Len, who's the top of your value play rankings? You got one?
Yeah, there are so many guys in the eights. You know, this course brings so many players into play because it's short, and a really true long hitter has not won this tournament in a long time. We can go down the eights. Sung J M at 86, Shane Lowry at 83, Tommy Fleetwood at 81. I think of those, I like Shane Lowry the best. He had a pretty good Masters last week. He wasn't really in the thick of it where he was stressed out on Sunday, but he finished 16th. He's been playing this tournament for a long time, even before he was a PGA Tour member. That tells me he really likes coming here, and he's played well here. He's finished third a couple of times. Again, very soft hands, good scrambler, like Justin Thomas, really good around the greens. He could really fit in every lineup at 83.
Jeff, who do you like as a value play?
Yeah, no, I mean, Len touched on the 8K range, and those guys in the low 8K range are very solid. I mean, Lowry at 8,300, probably going to be a very popular play, but for very good reason. He's done extremely well at this event. Hatton and Fleetwood also look fine, but I think the lower 7K range is also chock full of really good values. Maybe these aren't as elite players, but a guy like Adam Svensson at 7,000, again, had a terrible Masters. It was his first time playing the event. It's a longer course. This is a great setup for Adam Svensson. He was T26 here on his debut last season. He's the player we saw leading the players after 2 rounds, another Pete Dye design course. He's only 7K. Adam Svensson excels at short iron play. He's really improved his around the green game and putting upside in 2023. We saw him win just down the road here at Sea Island. It's not very far from where Hilton Head is this week. Adam Svensson loves these shorter kind of technical tracks. And I also think Christian Bezuidenhout at 7,100, extremely playable. He's been extremely good. Another player just sets up perfectly for these kind of designs. We saw him spike at TPC Stadium. So Bezuidenhout, Svensson, 2 players in the low 7K range I really like this week.
Less than a minute to go in show. So quickly, your favorite DFS play at the RBC Heritage, Jeff?
Yeah, my favorite overall play is just Justin Thomas. Again, it's under 9K. It's extremely simple. I'm just expecting a decent bounce back. And he's so cheap, we just don't even really need him to win to cash in for DFS.
Len?
Yeah, I'm not to just reiterate what Jeff said. Love him, but Matt Kuchar is 77. Brendan Todd, Jason Sobel says I'm always in the tank for Brendan Todd. Like Brendan Todd at 6,900 on a shorter track as well.
Gentlemen, fantastic work. Jeff, we'll dive more into the RBC Heritage tonight, a Wednesday edition of the slate. That's at 5 o'clock on the DraftKings social channels. We will see everybody then.